Ixia, a leader in performance analysis solutions, presents the IxNetwork video tutorial series. IxNetwork is Ixia's flagship software application for testing the network infrastructure, including all devices like routers, switches, network access controllers, broadband access, carrier Ethernet, and data center Ethernet. It's used by professionals around the world, including development and system test engineers, network design and support engineers, and even marketing and sales to demonstrate product capabilities and performance. This video tutorial is brought to you by the IxNetwork product management team. In this IxNetwork video tutorial, we're going to take a detailed look at the packet editor. First, in Chapter 1, we'll look at the feature overview. Next, in Chapter 2, we'll look at the packet editor basics, including how to access the packet editor from the basic traffic wizard, advanced wizard, and quick flow groups. And we'll look at a basic example using Ethernet and adding VLAN tagging as an example. Last, in Chapter 3, we'll look at the packet editor advanced features, including how to add additional headers like TCP or UDP on top of IP using the advanced wizard. And we'll look at features like fully meshed or select primary link to perform nested looping to increment various fields. We'll also take a quick look at the template editor, a powerful tool to add to the packet library. In Chapter 1, we'll go over the packet editor overview. The IxNetwork packet editor is a powerful tool that enables easy editing of packet contents. This includes minor changes like source destination addressing or QoS values, and major changes like adding or removing protocol headers. It provides field operations in addition to static values, including increment, decrement, or list values, which are useful in doing things like quickly sending traffic to and from thousands of source and destination addresses. It also provides an easy option to enable tracking on a specific field, which enables the IxNetwork to increment the packet group identifier, which makes uniquely trackable streams. It provides the ability to perform nested looping to increment value within another value, like configuring 8 QoS values for every VLAN ID configured. The packet editor has two views, the traditional view showing every field, or the new easy-to-use stack diagram view, which enables the quick build-out of a protocol stack. Once a user is done editing a packet, it can be saved and loaded again into another configuration. There's also a deep library of packet templates, but if the one you want is not there, it can be easily added with the template editor. This provides users with an integrated tool to build packet templates. Some use cases for the packet editor include access list testing, testing rate limiting, QoS testing, address scale testing, negative test cases, and attacks like building ICMP echo requests. In Chapter 2, we're going to take a look at the packet editor basics, including the first step, which is how to access it, and we'll go into the basic features and cover a basic use case. So here we are in the IxNetwork software, and as you can see here under the port manager, I already have added 2 ports. To add ports, you can just quickly click on the Add Ports plus button icon here. Next, I've also configured static interfaces. So if you go under Protocols and Switching, under Static, you can see I have a static MAC address configured on each port. So for the packet editor, the next step you want to do is go to Traffic. In the Traffic view, I have no traffic currently configured. So first, I'm going to show you how to access the packet editor from the basic wizard. To launch the basic traffic wizard, you can click up here on the traffic toolbar, or on the drop down on the traffic view, you can click on Add Traffic Item with Basic Wizard. Using the basic traffic wizard is exactly what it is intended to be, which is to quickly create basic traffic. Basic meaning you're not doing advanced features like creating flow groups, doing QoS testing. So let's take this example here, and since I have already built Ethernet endpoints, my traffic type is going to be Ethernet, and I'll click the bidirectional button, which will allow me to very quickly and easily build traffic in each direction, and I'll click Next. Next, I pick my source and destination, transmitting from one port to the other. And since I've clicked bidirectional, I will build traffic flows in each direction. Next, I click the down arrow, creating an endpoint set. And I can click next. The next view here is the frame setup. I'm going to leave the defaults 64 byte at 10% line rate. Next is flow tracking. I'm building Ethernet traffic, so I'm going to track on the source and destination MAC address. And I click next, and I'm at the summary. And so you can see, going throughout the basic wizard, I never actually was able to view the packet editor or edit the actual addressing or contents of the packet. So I click finish. And now I have my traffic item view. And within this traffic item, I have a flow in each direction here. As I indicated, I did click on the bidirectional button. So I have one flow group on port 10, group on port 11. So to actually access the packet editor when you use the basic wizard, you need to right click and go into the flow group properties. Going into the flow group properties, you can come in and edit the properties, including things like the frame size and frame rate. Because using the basic wizard actually creates a flow group on each port, you can come in and edit these properties at this level. The next view you have here is packets. When you click on packets, you actually get the packet editor. So once again, using the basic wizard, you need to right click on that flow group and go into the flow group editor and change the view to the packet editor view. So here in the packet editor, one of the first things I want to show you is the buttons on the top represent quick and easy ways to do things, like, for example, expanding all the tree protocol nodes. When I click on that, I can see in detail what I've built. So in this case, using the basic wizard, I've built traffic that is sourced from and destined to a static interface. Because I've tied it to that static interface, the source and destination MAC information show up as what we call learned info. Meaning it's tied to a bound interface, in this case a static interface. The next field I see here is the ether type. The ether type is showing up as auto, meaning we auto-populate that field. The reason we auto-populate certain fields is because we want to be able to intelligently populate that field if you add another header to it. In this case, the ether type will be unique or different if I add a VLAN tag or if I add IP on top of Ethernet. We will go ahead and put in the proper ether type for you. That's why that field is auto. If you want to edit a field that's auto, you need to right click on that field and click on the edit button. Now that I've edited the ether type, I can actually manually edit it. In this example, if I wanted to emulate IP on top of Ethernet, I could configure 0800, which is the value for the ether type of IP. An easier way to do that would be to right click on this field and configure it as auto, and then on top of Ethernet I can add IP. To add a header, you can select the field that you want to add the header on top of and click on this button, which is Add Protocol to Frame. Adding protocol to frame will automatically filter for protocols that are supposed to be added on top of what you've selected. There's a long list here you can see. So we have a feature called Quick Search. I can type IP and then very quickly select IPv4 and select OK. I now have added IPv4 on top of Ethernet. And once again, I can click the button to expand all children to see all the fields within the headers I've added. Another way to edit is to go to the stack diagram view. You go to the stack diagram view by clicking this button here on the top. When you're in the stack diagram view, you can see it's much easier visually to look at. And for example, if on top of Ethernet I didn't want IPv4, I can click on the red X to delete it. Now on top of Ethernet, if If I want a VLAN header, I can click the plus button and select VLAN. Now on top of the VLAN header, if I want Ethernet IPv4, I can select IPv4. And then just by clicking away from the dialog, we'll get it to remove. Now, even within this diagram here, I can click on a particular field and edit it. So for example, if my source address was 1.1.1.1, I'd select OK. And my destination address, I can click on it. And as you can see here, I can hard code a single value, or I can use features like increment, decrement, or list. So in this case, I'll say my destination address is 2.2.2.2. And I select OK. So in this use case, if I was testing a layer 2 Ethernet switch, but I wanted traffic to look more realistic, meaning actually have an IP header on top of it, I could go ahead and build it, but in this case, we aren't tied to a protocol stack where we will ARP. What we can see here is that the ether type field was actually automatically populated as to the 0800 value. So to go back to the detailed editor, I can just click on this button here to go back to packet editor. Now that I've built this frame, another thing that's somewhat useful, especially if I'm looking at protocol decodes, is that I can click on the hex view. Clicking on the hex view actually expands the view so I can see the hex contents of the packet. Now, as I click within the packet, in this case selecting the Ethernet header, I can see the packet hex view actually highlighted. So if I was comparing this to a protocol trace, I could quickly and easily see what fields are enabled. Another thing I'd like to point out is that when I went through the basic wizard, I enabled tracking. So I enabled tracking on the source and destination MAC address. This tracking is useful then when I look at the results because I can track per source or per destination address. Here in the packet editor, I can click on this icon here and enable or disable tracking. So I right click and I can actually uncheck the box and turn off tracking on the field, or I can right click and enable tracking on that field. We've gone over quite a bit of information here using the basic traffic wizard to create this. Using the basic wizard, you don't actually get to the packet editor. You have to get to the packet editor by right clicking and selecting flow group properties. So now in this example, using the basic wizard, I finished editing the properties on the flow group on my first port. I would have to go to my second port and right click and also edit the flow group properties on that port to continue with my testing. You can see here that that would be fairly cumbersome if I had to do this across many ports. So let's take a look at what this workflow would be like with the advanced traffic wizard. So to move on to the advanced traffic wizard, first I'm going to delete what I've created here. To do that, these flow groups are defined under this traffic item. So I just select the traffic item here and click the red X, and I can permanently remove those traffic items. Now I'm going to proceed on using the advanced wizard. To build traffic using the advanced wizard, I can click here on the traffic toolbar, or once again I can click on the down arrow in the traffic folders view and select add traffic with the advanced wizard. Selecting that launches the advanced wizard, and my first screen is endpoint selection. So once again, I have to make sure I'm selecting the proper encapsulation. Once again, I have static interfaces built, so by choosing the Ethernet VLAN option, I do see that if I expand all, I can see my static interfaces are available here. So once again, in similar workflow with my basic wizard, I select bidirectional and I select my source and destination. Since I've selected bidirectional, IxNet will automatically create for me traffic in each direction. I choose the down arrow, creating my endpoint pair, and I select next. The second screen in the advanced traffic is the packet editor. So you can see the packet editor is built into the advanced traffic wizard. So more commonly than not, if you're testing, doing quality service testing or access list testing or rate limiting testing or any advanced feature or function where you need to edit the payload contents, you would typically be using the Advanced Traffic Wizard. So first, on the top here, you see to select by the traffic item level or the encapsulation level. In this case, I have one common encapsulation, which is just Ethernet. So I am going to select encapsulation level because I'd like to show you a feature on the grid here. So the view and the capabilities here in this window are very similar to what you saw in the packet editor using the basic wizard, which are, I have the same buttons so I can expand the protocol tree and see what I've built here. Once again, I have learned information in my source and destination, so I can't edit it because it's tied to my static interface. I also have auto fields, which are auto-populated by IxNetwork because they can be based on the contents that you add on top of the protocol here. So in this use case, let's say I do want to configure a layer 2 QoS test. To do that, I need to add a VLAN header and I need to edit QoS bits. So there are multiple ways you can do that. Once again, you can select the Ethernet header and then select the add protocol frame. And once again, we have a quick search, and so I can type in the word VLAN and I can see I can add a VLAN header, and I select OK. This adds the VLAN header on top of Ethernet, and if I expand that, I can edit things like the VLAN priority and VLAN ID. Similarly, if I switch over to the stack diagram view, I can see here that I can once again also use the plus sign and the red X to edit my stack. And in this view, we don't have room to show all the fields, so we don't expose all of them. So certain fields are exposed and editable, like in this case VLAN ID. Other fields are not exposed, where we would need to go back to the packet editor to edit them. So let's switch back over to the packet editor. In this case, my source and destination MAC address are fixed because they're tied to the protocol interface. But now I'm going to configure my VLAN priority. So I click the down arrow, and what I'd like to do is a list value. So I select list, and I can type in my list of values. So in addition to 0, I want 5. Select OK. And I wasn't done with my list. In addition to 5, I want 5. And I also want 7. And now I hit enter, and I don't want the last 0 on there. Select delete. I say OK. Now I have a list value of 0, 5, and 7. So I have 3 different values there. Now I also have a VLAN ID. In this case, I click the down arrow, and I can choose an increment. And I want to start at value 100 and increment it. Count is 10 times. So select OK. So now I'm finished incrementing, and if I see down here in my lower view here, I have 10 packets created because my bigger list is 10 values and my shorter list is 3 values. So as I use these arrows, I can actually move through the values of the packet to see that I'm incrementing my user priority, the VLAN priority 3 times, and my VLAN ID 10 times. So once again, a powerful feature that the Advanced Wizard has is that I'm actually editing the packet contents that will be applied across all the flow groups. I don't need to edit each one individually afterwards to build something. It's built within the workflow. So I can do things like go and add QoS and add additional headers, and that will be propagated across all of the flow groups created. Once I increment a field or provide a list with a field, I can use this step view to actually step through each packet and see each of the values. Now, because I can have multiple encapsulations, I also provide a list up here, and we have drop-down values and easy editing of things like any field that you're editing, including, in this case, VLAN ID or the VLAN priority, are now also available for edit on the top list box. But now I'm finished with this screen, and what I'd like to show you is within the workflow here, you have your flow group configuration, and this example is not focused on flow group building, so we're going to just skip over this. Click Next. You have your frame setup. We're going to leave it at the default here. One thing I recommend is if you are going and editing the packet contents is to choose the auto mode. That way we will auto select the minimum frame length required. If you choose fixed and leave it at 64, we will provide you with a warning or an error. Next is the rate configuration, and I'll leave it at 10% rate. Here's flow tracking. So once again, I can enable tracking on particular fields here in flow tracking, or back at the packet and QoS view, I can right click on a field and enable tracking. I can also disable tracking here. So that feature and functionality is still there. Next is a very nice feature we have here within the Advanced Traffic Wizard is the preview. If I go ahead and click on the View the Flow Groups and Packets button, it will give me a preview of the items changing within the packet. So for example, on my first port here, I have a single flow group. And as I click on that, I can see that my source and destination MAC are static, but I did an increment. I actually did a list on the VLAN priority, so I can see 057, 057, that pattern is repeating. And my VLAN ID, I did an increment of 10 values starting at 100, so I have values 100 through 109. Now when I click on my second flow group on the second port, I can see that I have the same thing configured with the source and destination swapped. So you can see here using the Advanced Traffic Wizard, it allows me the ability to build and edit the packets inherently within the wizard and apply it across all the flow groups created. I click Next. We have the ability to validate to ensure you have no errors with your configuration, and you click Finish. So clicking Finish once again populates your flow groups within your grid here, and once again you can right click and also go into the flow group properties to edit. So if we click on flow group properties, we have a shorter version of it, but it's basically the same editing capability you have within the basic wizard when you edit flow group properties, including the transmission properties and the packet contents as well. Also, if you need to edit the packet contents further and want to use the wizard again, just double clicking on the traffic item will relaunch the traffic wizard, and by selecting the endpoint set and saying next, you'll go back into and have the full packet editing capability again. I'm just going to hit cancel here. I don't need to make any edits, and that completes the example of how to use and edit using the Advanced Wizard. Further in this demonstration, we'll take you through another use case. Now we've completed using the Advanced Traffic Wizard, and we're going to go into the last way to build traffic and also the last way to access the packet editor. That's using the quick flow groups. So once again, I'm going to start by selecting my traffic item I built and clicking the red X to delete this particular traffic item. This will delete all flow groups associated with it. So I say yes. So now I have no traffic built. And to build quick flow groups, I can click this button up on the toolbar, or once again, I have the option via the drop-down menu. I'm going to select Add Quick Flow Groups. This pops up this easy dialog that says, how many flow groups do I want to create per port? So I just want to create one per port, and I'll select both ports and select OK. The quick flow groups does not take you through a wizard. You basically have the ability to fully edit everything within the packet contents. However, the editing is not all right within the grid. So first, I can see here I have my flow group view, and as I scroll across, one of the fields that jumps out at me here is encapsulation. So if I do want to edit the packet contents, I see the encapsulation view. I can select it and click the down arrow. This down arrow gives me a mini packet designer, which allows me the ability to add particular fields. So if continuing the same example, using now the quick flow groups, if on top of Ethernet I want to add VLAN, I click VLAN. Now on top of VLAN I want to add IP, I select IP, and I can very quickly and easily build out my protocol stack. Now quick flow groups do not build traffic tied to bound interfaces like static. So in this case, when I click on my destination MAC, it is not auto-configured for me. I do have to go in and configure the source and destination MAC. So that is there. Also, I can click and edit any field that is exposed here. But once again, we don't have the room to expose every field within this editor. So to get to the packet editor, what you do is, once again, you right-click on the quick flow group and you go into the flow group property. Going into the flow group property takes you into basically the same editor as you've seen when right-clicking and editing the basic traffic generated or the advanced traffic generated. So first is I have my packet properties, things like frame size and rate. Next is the packets view, where I have the packet editor. Now, one nice thing about editing within the quick flow groups versus the basic is there is a variable fields preview here. So when we do things like go in the VLAN header and do things like edit the priority value and VLAN tag, in this example, once again, I'll do a increment value on my priority starting at 0, stepping by 1, and my count will be 3. Select OK. Now on my VLAN ID, I select the down arrow, I do an increment. I'm going to start at 100 and increment by 10, and I select OK. Similar to the advanced, gotta hit enter. Similar to the packet advanced builder, I can use these arrows to step through the values, but one difference here is we expose the variable fields preview. By clicking on that, this is similar to the packet preview within the advanced wizard, but I can see my destination MAC, which in this case, once again, this is a good catch because I did not actually configure the destination MAC, and so it's still all zeros. But I can see I'm incrementing through my configured priority and my configured VLAN address. So once again, any field that I'm editing or incrementing or decrementing or providing a list value, I can quickly view it here on the varied field preview view. And if I don't like what I've edited, for example, if I need to correct my MAC addressing, I can click back in on the packet content, expand my Ethernet header, and I can edit my MAC address, just coming and configuring some easy addressing here, and click enter. Now when I go to my preview, I can see that my source and destination are populated correctly. I select OK. So one benefit here is that within the quick flow group, you do have a very quick and easy access to build traffic, and using the encapsulation dialog, we have the packet designer here that is very quick and easy to use and access. You can also right-click and edit the flow group properties, which gives you full configuration of all the fields. But one disadvantage it has to the advanced wizard is that I do have to click in and edit for each flow group I build. So for a lower port density test, doing functional testing, this is a good fit. However, if I'm configuring across a lot of ports, I most likely would want to use the advanced wizard. So this concludes the basics about the packet editor and the 3 ways to access it through the basic traffic wizard, the advanced traffic wizard, or the quick flow groups. In Chapter 3, we're going to look at an advanced use case and some advanced features of the packet editor. To delete the quick flow groups we've created, you right-click on the flow group and select Delete Selected Quick Flow Group. Yes. And do the same thing for the second one. Okay, so now we're going to go back and create traffic using the advanced wizard for this use case, because it will be the most common way that users will go in and use the advanced packet editor. So starting from the All Traffic Items view, I can see I have no traffic here, and I'm going to build traffic using the advanced wizard. Once again, I'm selecting the Ethernet VLAN encapsulation because I'm tying my traffic to and from the static interface that's built. Static interface is only a configured MAC address. And I have bidirectional checked, meaning I'm going to build bidirectional flows between these two source and destination addresses. So I select that endpoint pair, and I move on to next, which is the packet editor. So here, we're going to address a common use case, which is on top of Ethernet, adding IP and adding UDP or TCP, and then editing those values. So to make it a little easier, I'm going to switch over to the stack diagram view. Now, on top of Ethernet, I'm going to select IPv4. Now, on top of IPv4, for this example, I'll choose TCP. So you can see pretty quickly and easily I can build out my protocol stack. Once again, in this case, for example, it's a layer 2 switch that's aware of higher layer protocols. For example, it can snoop or potentially enforce access lists looking further up into the packet. So I'm not actually tying this to a protocol interface that will ARP, yet I do want to actually test this device for its ability to look up into IP and TCP. So to go and edit these values, I'm going to switch back to the packet editor. Here, as I use the button to expand all, I can see I now have a fairly lengthy frame here. So one of the other features within the packet editor is something called the field lookup. If I want to edit something like the IP source, I can choose the IP address, select Find Me the IP header. There's another view which actually can find subheaders. For example, I can look up a field and it pulls out all of the fields, so I can actually say look up the source address, and it will take me right to the source address within the frame. So these field lookup capabilities are useful when you have a large packet that you've built. So for example, in my source IP address, I'm going to click on the down arrow and edit this, and I'm going to do an increment starting at the address 10.1.1.1. And my count is going to be 10 times. And I select OK. And I hit enter. So right away at the bottom I can see that I have 10 packets. Now I'm also going to increment the destination address. So I select the down arrow and I'm going to choose 10.2.1.1 and choose increment. And the count here is also going to be 10. So select OK. So now I've incremented my source and my destination. However, I still have 10 packets. So in this case, I have a one-to-one mapping. So if I were to look at my preview at this point, as I click on the flow group, I have my source and destination are incrementing on one-to-one basis. So that's why I have 10 total. So let's go back to the packet and QoS view. Now, on this address, if I actually wanted to have each source transmitting to each destination, I can enable something called fully mesh this field. By turning that on, I can see I just went to 100 packets. So by fully meshing this field, I am going to use each of my source IPs to each destination address. So let's take a look at what this means in the preview. So now in the preview, I need to click on the button again to regenerate the preview. I now can see that I have fully meshed my source address with my destination. So every single source address I'm incrementing my source while I'm not incrementing my destination. And then once I get through all my addresses, I increment my source. Then I go to the next destination. So this is what the fully mesh field does. And then going back to the packet and QoS view, I can see I have 100 because it's 10 times 10. Now, for example, I have a TCP header on top of IP. When you add TCP, you'll see this field auto. Once again, the auto indicates that IxNetwork is auto-populating or auto-calculating a field. For example, frequently when you look at checksum fields, you will see auto. So in this case, the TCP destination port is also auto, but I actually want to manually edit it. To edit it, I right-click and click on the Edit button. So now, I click on the down arrow, and I want to do a list. Here, I'm going to use some well-known TCP destination ports like 20, 21, which are both used for Telnet. I'm sorry, FTP. I'll use 23 for Telnet. $25 for SMTP, and I'll use 53 for DNS. So at this point, I've configured all the TCP port destination port numbers I want to use. I select OK. So now in this packet, I'm actually incrementing 3 fields. So when I right-click, so now I have the 5 TCP destination port numbers that I want, and I like to link these to the source IP. So first of all, in source IP, I'm going to turn off fully meshing this field, and on the destination port number, I'm going to right-click, and there's an option for Select Primary Link. When I choose Select Primary Link, it shows me other fields that are being incremented. So I want to tie this to or do a nested loop with the source address. So I select OK, and now I can see I have 50 packets because I'm performing a TCP increment for each one of my source addresses. So for example, when I go into preview and I go on the flow group properties, I click on the traffic item, I can see that for each source address, so here I can see that for each source and destination pair, I have a TCP destination port number. So I'm incrementing and going through all of my source addresses 10 times. Then, as I keep scrolling down, I'm going through my next value of TCP destination port numbers, and so on. Now in this case, my source and destination both were incrementing 10 times. But if I wanted to increment my source 10 times but not increment my server, I can do that as well. And since I'm linking the TCP destination port to the source address, I still would have the same increment. However, I could make it so that my destination was not incrementing. So this is an example of what is known as, when you right-click, selecting the primary link. You're selecting which value you want to nest to for your nested loop when you're incrementing more than one, in this case, 3 fields. So by selecting primary link, it allows you to select which value you want to choose as your outer incrementer for the nested loop. So that concludes the advanced example with the packet editor. I'm going to click cancel here. What I do want to show you is, in addition to the packet templates that are available, there is a packet template builder. Packet template builder or editor is available here at the toolbar. Here you can go in and see all the templates that are available. You can actually edit them. And when you look at specific protocols, like for example in layer 3, if you look at OSPF, there's OSPF v2 hello packet. This particular packet template has already been built, but if there's any new protocols developed, or if you want to build a negative protocol packet, you could actually come in and build a template which then can be used in the editor. So all these values are then used within your editor, and you can configure the various subfields and headers. For example, the OSPF hello interval is 10. That's a hard-coded value here, but it is editable once you pull it within the packet editor. And the template editor is fully configurable. So this makes IxNetwork very extensible for testing new protocols. So this concludes the IxNetwork topic on the packet editor. Thank you for watching this video tutorial and your interest in IxNetwork. For more information on IxNetwork, check out www.ixiacom.com. Thank you for your time and interest from the IxNetwork Product Management Team.